the earlier a child sees it and the more often a child looks, the higher chance of addiction.
I think that's one of my biggest worries, that they might see it and think this is how we treat women.
If you don't have the trust and the connection and the communication, you can't possibly monitor everything 24/7.
Yeah, it sounds silly. I don't even know where to start.
First of all, it doesn't sound silly. You have to educate a child to recognize in their own physical body when something doesn't feel right.
Do the controls do anything?
Again, I'm going to say that I wouldn't rely on it.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily.
And I'm Matt.
And welcome back to our podcast, What They Don't Tell You.
But we will.
Yes, and today we are so excited. We have a guest on. We're joined by Aisling O'Connor, who is a leading parenting and child psychologist who is on a mission to help parents protect their children from the dangers of online pornography. She has expertise in early childhood development and online safety, and she empowers families with the tools and knowledge and confidence to have those tough conversations to help safeguard our children from the digital world when no one is watching. So this is a huge topic.
Wow.
Obviously, we've got 3 boys. So welcome, Aisling. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for asking.
Oh, thank you. We've got so many questions for you. But before we get into all of that, I'd love to know a bit of background and kind of how you led, to focus on this topic.
Yep. Okay, so there's probably 2 experiences that I had when I was younger that led to today, and why I'm so passionate about it. The first being when I was quite young, I found myself in situations where there was some predatory behavior towards me. And what stands out as an adult reflecting back on what happened is 2 things. The first thing was the proximity of my parents. And the second thing was the fact that I never went to my parents. I didn't know it was wrong. I didn't know that I could talk to somebody that, a trusted adult, etc. The second situation that happened when I was a little bit older, and I found myself in a bit of a situation where I needed an adult's help. And I remembered the moment where I stood and I said, I can't go to my mum. And I went to my best friend's mum instead. And for me, then I became a mum myself, obviously, about 8-9 years ago. And for me now, it's about making sure that I swore my children would never, ever be in a situation where they would never feel like they couldn't come to me. So everything I do in my psychology, in my practice, in my parenting is all with the bottom kind of sole mission is to teach parents that your relationship and the connection you have with your child is the number one thing that's going to keep them safe in the world. Because I can't guarantee that they won't be groomed. I can't guarantee that something won't happen to them, but I can almost 99.9% guarantee they'll come to me. And that's what keeps them safe.
And so what age are children typically when they're first exposed to pornography online?
So there's a little bit of different research around it, but what we are seeing is the research showing 8 is the average age that children are stumbling across something, or we have to also consider that they're also intentionally being shown something by groomers. So what we need to think about though is I actually believe it's a lot younger in a lot of instances. And I know it is because, again, I'm having those conversations now. And I'm also talking to children in my practice. I have a private practice. And so I have little kids coming and talking to me about what they're seeing on YouTube and what they're seeing in different places. So many parents are shocked when I say that. Like, of course they're shocked. Like, when we think back to, I'm putting us in the same age bracket. I apologise if you guys.
No, I think we're probably on the.
Yeah.
But we were, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, probably before these conversations even happened or whatever. But now we have to be way, way earlier.
We didn't have, did we? What they have? Do you know what I mean?
No, social media.
No. And that's really important to say, Emily and Matt, is that for anyone listening, I really want them to hear me say, none of this is their fault. They're not failing in any way. They were not brought up with technology. And also technology is evolving so rapidly. It's impossible for a parent to keep up with it. But there is so much that you can do. You don't need to know everything, but you do need to know some stuff.
What kind of content are they stumbling across? Like, especially like you say, 8 years old.
Yeah, so it depends on where they're seeing it. So there's some very common places where they are coming across content. Like, for example, one of the worst places is Roblox. one of the absolute worst places that a child could be on because it's totally unsuitable. And they're seeing like sex dungeons, they're seeing sexual acts being played out, they're seeing shower scenes, they're seeing like horrendous things like that are totally not suitable. But you've also got like a simple Google search where a child is curious and innocently, you know, they Google something about where babies come from or whatever they Google, and all of a sudden they're looking at really explicit content.
Yeah.
So it ranges.
And say with something like Roblox, even if you go through and do all the parental controls that you can do, will that protect them, or could they still stumble across a world like a dungeon, as you say?
Yes, 100%. So there's many instances of, documented times where parents have locked everything down with full parental controls, and they've had pretended to be 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, whatever, and they've gone on there and they've still been able to see so much stuff. And this is why, and we will get to this, I'm sure, but one of the driving messages I will say to you today is you can't rely on parental controls.
No.
They're fantastic. And there's only a few of them that are actually reliable and that I would trust, but they have a place, but they're a small part of the bigger picture.
See, that's terrifying because we think, oh, we've done all the parental controls, people can't message them, and you feel like you've done everything. But then, they don't necessarily protect them.
Not fully. They do a lot.
Yeah, but you still got to be
but
involved.
also, I mean, especially as kids get older, they're so clever that, they can work around these parental controls as well. And I saw something online the other day about this calculator app that some children have now on their phone. And actually, that's where they hide everything that they shouldn't have, because we would never click on the calculator.
Wow.
Yeah. So we talk about these. These are called decoy apps. And they're obviously, that's exactly what they're doing. They're pretending that there's nothing there and they look so innocent. So a red flag to any parent that's checking a device, and I would encourage that you're monitoring and checking devices until a certain age, is that you see 2 calculators, 2 little icons of calculators, or 2 torches or something like that. And not even 2, like, let's, again, don't be complacent about seeing 2 and thinking if there isn't 2 that I'm safe. Just double check, just click on it. Click on the little torch every now and then, or click on the calculator and just double check, because unfortunately there's a lot of stuff been hidden on there as well.
They're almost more savvy than us on these devices.
Oh yeah.
and that's why the relationship is key.
Yeah.
That's exactly why, right? If you don't have the trust and the connection and the communication, then you're setting that up that they can just go off and do whatever they want, because you can't possibly monitor everything 24/7.
Yeah. And what does early exposure to pornography, like, how does it affect a child and their brain and their emotional well-being?
So when they stumble across something, a child will obviously be quite traumatized if they haven't been spoken to about what like sex is or what pornography is. So you can imagine if you stop for a second and just think, right, if I knew nothing about it, and like suddenly this flashed up on the screen of a man and a woman, and the man been quite aggressive or whatever, that's a stereotype I'm saying, but you get what I mean, then a child has absolutely no idea of what that is. It just looks really confronting and frightening. So that itself can be really traumatic. The second thing, and this is a really big issue, is addiction. So when we do something, we have this beautiful dopamine that goes through our brain, and it's like a motivational drug or a motivational kind of thing that goes through our system, and we go, right, I like this feeling, I'm going to do that again. It keeps you going, right? Keeps you going back to do it again. Like if you're working in your house, working in your garden, whatever. But with screens and pornography, the dopamine hits are so fast that the other things that a child used to enjoy doing, say, for example, Lego, etc., the dopamine doesn't come as quick with Lego anymore. And so they don't want to play it. They lose interest in the Lego and they just want to be online, or they just want to be looking at pornography. And so the more dopamine hits you get, the more you want. And it becomes this cycle of craving more and more and more. So the addiction is a real issue. And again, the earlier a child sees it and the more often a child looks, the higher chance of addiction. The other thing we need to think about is how it really creates this distorted view of relationships and really unrealistic expectations. So again, if a child hasn't been spoken to by a caregiver about what actual healthy relationships and sex are, and they've watched porn for a year or two, and suddenly they find themselves in a romantic relationship, they're going to expect something very different to what I would consider a healthy relationship when it comes to the sexual side of the relationships or getting romantically involved, etc. So there's a lot of things to think about.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of my biggest worries, that they might see it and think this
the
is how
norm.
we treat women and this is normal. I saw some horrifying research that said more and more girls now, I think they did a poll, and more girls now that are sexually active had experienced like hair pulling, choking. That was it. That really scared me, because they're seeing it more and more.
That's the norm.
And they're thinking that that is normal. So having those difficult conversations, is it like, do we literally sit down and say to them, you're probably going to come across pornography? Like, it sounds silly. I don't even know where to start.
First of all, it doesn't sound silly.
Okay. Well, how do I do this?
Yeah, I guarantee you no one sat you down and talked about these
No,
things
never.
as a
No.
child. You were handed a book if you were lucky, or you found your parents' porn magazine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was your introduction. So it's not silly, okay? So if we're really going back to the start, I would be saying that this starts early and it starts as young as possible. So for anyone listening to this, I would say start today. Okay, so depending on the age of your child, there's different conversations that you would have. But if we say they're 7 or less, 7 or younger, you want to start thinking about, and I can help anybody, obviously they can reach out to me. You want to start thinking about consent. So consent is a really big one now because of pornography. So consent isn't about sitting down and having a conversation. That's a small piece of it. The bigger piece is modeling it. So in my house, for example, I have 2 kids, and since they've been like 2, I've done all the little chats and all the conversations, and no means no in my house. So they know as soon as one of them says no, stop, the other person stops instantly. And that has been modeled the entire way through their life so far. So they now know when they go out into the world that it's expected that when I say no, somebody listens to me. That's my body autonomy. I get the right to say no. So those type of conversations happen. Early warning signs. This is a really big point, that children do not automatically know, like I didn't, when there's predatory behavior. You got to think about the power imbalance when there's an adult, because for me it was an older adult male and I was a young child, like 5 or 6. That's very intimidating. It's very scary to think you just have to follow the rules and you have to do what you're told, because that's how we used to be, brought up. So you have to educate a child to recognize in their own physical body when something doesn't feel right. So they start to trust their body. Then you move on to having the conversation about things like a safety team, or the fact that, what's your plan? If something happens, let's rehearse what exactly you will do. And these conversations, although it seems like there might be a lot, they happen sporadically and they happen often. They don't happen once is what I'm trying to say. They happen many, many times over many, many years. Okay, so they then start to keep a child safe. Then if you're talking to, let's say you've got a 7, 8-year-old and they're older, you're thinking about the fact that what do they already know, and you're expanding on it. So if your child has a rough idea about where babies come from, which I would hope they would by 8, then you'd expand on that. And you can get really curious and you can say, something comes on television or a movie. Let's say there's 2 adults and they're kissing. You might say something like, "Ooh, I wonder what they're doing," or "I wonder, have you ever seen anybody doing that on your computer?" Or you can just use everyday moments. So it's not this big thing of, let's sit down, we're going to have the chat. It's many, many, many conversations.
I guess for us as well, we sort of focus on having 3 boys and we sort of think that is the issue here. But obviously girls are impacted too. But how do you see them, how are they impacted differently to you? But we've just got boys, we only have one experience, but...
Yeah, so boys, as we talked about, is that unrealistic expectations in relationship. The aggression, the addiction can be quite high, especially when pornography with boys. With girls, we've got this the body image, and we've got this kind of unrealistic expectation about what it's meant to be like in a relationship. So there's so many girls that will say to me, we've just met and we're getting to know each other, but he's already asked me to do X, Y, and Z, because he thinks that's normal. And the girl will do it because she thinks that's what it's like to be in a relationship, which is horrendous. And then they're comparing themselves. So they think, well, that's what everybody does. So that's what I have to do in a relationship. And that's how I have to look as well. It's having a huge body image when it comes to girls as opposed to the boys. The boys is more the aggression and the addiction.
And then it's those girls that don't have that relationship with their parents, that haven't been spoken to, that's not what you do.
Like, is this
right? And it's really hard anyway because of social media. Like there's a fantastic, if you don't know this guy, I'm sure you probably do, Jonathan Haidt, and he's a fantastic psychologist around this whole entire area. He's written this brilliant book, The Anxious Generation, and he's done all the research, and he's shown us that since the iPhones and the smartphones and the social media have come about since 2010, 2011, that there's been massive increases in all of the anxiety, depression, all of the body images issues, etc. And for girls, it's all about that comparison. That's the biggest detriment. We see huge disordered eating, etc. It's all about that comparison for girls, whereas for the boys, it's a lot about aggression and addiction.
Okay. And what are some of the most common ways that the kids are actually accessing the porn or seeing it? Are there specific apps or?
Yep. So all games. So your top 3 games are Minecraft, Roblox, and Fortnite. They're like, the problem with them is they're full of predators. So many, again, I keep coming back to the conversations I have, but so many parents are absolutely shocked that I tell them those games are actually full of like 45-year-old, 6-year-old, whatever, men who are actually part of organized crimes, who are trying to exploit your children so that they can get more material. Do you know what I mean? To obtain money and whatnot, to blackmail them. So all games, not all games, sorry, those 3 in particular are pretty bad. Discord is another app that I would never let anybody on. It's a talking app that has a lot of hidden content on there. As Google, it can be as simple as, I said, Google search on something. It can pop up on something, but there's many different places. Another one that really shocks parents is YouTube Kids.
Yeah. Because we've got the YouTube Kids, but things do still slip through, don't they?
Of course. Yeah. And that's why when you've got young kids in particular, it's a really good idea, and this is really hard because we're parents and we're tired and we want to break and all of the things, that it's so easy to give them the screen and let them off for a few hours. And we've all done it and we all do it. But just being mindful that if they're particularly young, that you're sitting beside them, because you don't know, like there was that, have you heard of that Momo?
Yes, that was awful. Yes. It
happened to one of my friends, actually, her child, and she was traumatized for 6 months after it. And so you just don't know that they're innocently watching Peppa Pig or whatever, and suddenly in the middle of it, something's popped up and you've no idea, only that suddenly your child stops sleeping and he's really separation anxiety, and a parent has no idea what's actually happened, and it could be something like that
they've seen. Well, it happens to me even as an adult. Sometimes, the algorithm might show me something, I don't know, something dramatic, like a crying baby or a road accident, and I can't stop thinking about it. It's like just something traumatic, which is obviously getting loads of views because people are watching it, because it's that kind of human nature, like you can't look away. And that kind of stuff lives with us, so you can imagine that the things they're seeing are living with them and causing a bit of anxiety as well.
There's so much to avoid, though, like the game steps. Is there anything that you would not think, any apps, because the kids are going to use iPads, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? There's no point taking it away completely. I feel like it'd be good to give some advice of, I don't know, like apps that do it right, that they are protected.
So regarding to the apps, Matt, I would be saying there is a fantastic app that I recommend to everybody, and it's Common Sense Media.
Common Sense Media.
I'll write this down.
Right? So it's fantastic, right? So I use it for absolutely everything, and I tell everyone about it. So it basically breaks down age by age suitable TV shows, movies, games, etc. And it's got a really good article. You might do a bit of a search for it now to find it, but it's 50 games that children should play, and it breaks them down by age. Right. And it tells you from a parent point of view what's in it, whether there's inappropriate content, whether it's nudity, whether there's consumerism. It gives you what's in it. So you can read and then make an informed choice. So that's where I would direct everybody to there before. The second thing I would say is don't ever, and maybe if you're time poor, it's going to be hard, but don't ever take chances with it. If you're thinking that your child really wants to play such and such an app, download it yourself first.
Yeah.
And play around with it. If you download Roblox and you play around with it, within 5 minutes, you're going to come across inappropriate content, or you're going to be approached by a predator and you're never going to let your child play it. Okay, so just to consider that. And the third thing is that one of the practical steps that I would be telling parents to do, and we can get into this a little bit, is co-creating a family safety contract. So even if your children have devices and you're like, oh, it's too late for me, it's never too late. So basically a family safety contract is where you sit down as a family and you really trash out the rules that you're okay with, the boundaries around your tech usage. And it's important that parents come along to this as well, that they, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Look at their usage, because, you know, we're modeling again. But you just agree where devices are allowed to be used, when, what apps, etc. And one thing that we talk about is, let's say a child comes to you and says, right, I've played Roblox, I've been really good and I've followed all the rules. Please, can I have Fortnite? Because everybody else is playing Fortnite. Well, then you come together and you talk about it. And one way is to get your child to do a bit of research themselves and come to you with the pros and cons of what's on there, what's safe, what isn't safe. Have a little discussion and then decide as a family what you're going to do. So that can be another thing to do as well, rather than me just saying to you, oh, this is safe, and this is safe, because I can't even guarantee that. There are 3 ideas instead to do, and, you know, to protect them.
Yeah. Okay. I love that.
Good advice.
I need to do that with some things as well, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised about Minecraft. I don't know. I always felt that, you know, Fortnite and Roblox, but I felt that Minecraft was almost a safe. They're just building. They're just, you know, you don't really think about predators being on there as well. And then with, say, social media platforms like the TikToks, Snapchats, all of those, the parental controls that we can put on there, do they do anything? I can't help but think the social media, I mean, I know we're on social media right now, like we obviously enjoy it and I work in it, but I can't help but feel that their main priority is to addict the kids so that they keep using the platforms for as long as possible. So do the controls do anything?
Again, I'm going to say that I wouldn't rely on it, because we've seen these new teen accounts with Instagram and stuff, and they are not working. They don't work. We've seen so much inappropriate content still come up on their algorithms. It doesn't work. So you're dead right. This is exactly what they do. They try, their whole sole aim is to keep people on their platforms as long as possible, because every minute that somebody's on their platform, they're making money, right? So it's a business to them. They don't really care about the collateral damage. So I think it's a PR stunt sometimes that they come out with all these big announcements that they're going to do this, they're going to do that. And maybe they're trying. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. But ultimately, I would not rely on any of it. I want to bring you back for a second about Minecraft. You mentioned about how the Minecraft thing that you thought might be safe. And I think you're right. I think it does feel like it's safer, definitely. But what I want parents to think about is any game that has a chat function, that's where your issue is, right? So I have Minecraft. So I recently bought a PlayStation. And another tip for parents is, when you're buying a device, you call it your family device, right? Change the perception around it. It's not the child's device. It's not the child's game. It's the family game. So I recently bought one, and I decided to get Minecraft. And on Minecraft, we are not connected to the internet. There's absolutely no chat function, or no, you know, I don't have internet in the house. And the other thing is that they're in creative mode, not survival mode. So survival mode has a lot more stuff in there than creative mode. So if your child's not connected to the internet, if there's no chat function, Minecraft is okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, to be fair, ours don't have chat, do they?
Yeah.
They don't use the chat for,
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's it, because I suppose, like you say, if people can contact them on these devices through a games, it is literally like a stranger is
In the
talking
room.
to your child, but they're in your house.
In your
Yeah.
house. They're in your house. All right. So we used to think about, you know, we came home from school or work and we locked our front door at night and everybody was hopefully safe in the house. And that was it. Whereas now we actually have all these strangers streaming into our bedrooms, into our sitting room, everything.
Yeah, it's actually terrifying.
It is, when you think about it high level. Like, once you give your child access to the internet,
Yeah.
you're giving the entire internet access to your child.
Oh, don't.
Right? Think
I
about
know,
that.
you're
And that makes you go, okay. Because we don't think about it. We think, oh, they're just sitting on YouTube or they're just on whatever. But no, you're actually giving the access. Because the games are probably the top place that groomers target our children. So what they do is they come on, they pretend to be whatever age, girls and boys. They then get chatting. They start to build trust. They then say, hey, let's move across to Discord or let's move across to Snapchat because we can chat properly. Once they get them there, they start really trying to ramp up that trust. The conversations might go for months. They might go for hours. It depends on the child. And then once they obtain an image or something, they use it as blackmail. And then that's it. We're heading into sextortion then, and it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
At this stage, sorry, I feel like at this stage I'm probably completely traumatizing parents, and I just really want to bring everybody back to remind them there is so much we can do.
No,
right? This is heavy, but
no, I think it's really important to hear these stories and to know about the sextortion things, because we have had conversations with our children about that. We've sort of said, there is nothing that you could ever do, ever, that would make us not want you to come to us or not speak to us. But and then is there anything else we can do to encourage them coming to us if they do make a mistake, or to kind of keep that line open?
How long do we have? This is a big topic. So this is the driving force behind what I do, this connection piece, right? What gets in the way? If anything that disconnects a child from a caregiver is going to be a barrier. So if we are using threats, right? And number one thing I'll always tell parents is never threaten to take away devices from a child. No matter what they do or say, never use it as a threat, because then you're no longer a safe place, right? Because that's one of their biggest fears, that you're going to take away devices. Anything that disconnects, punishments, right? We've different ways of parenting. We can parent through punishment and control and threats, or we can parent with boundaries and connection. If you're on the boundaries and connection side, fantastic, because that's going to keep that connection strong and that child's going to feel safe to come to you no matter what. But if you're on this side, and let's say, for example, it's a harsh reality to hear, but if a parent is saying to a child, oh, you can come to me no matter what, I'm a safe place, don't ever be stuck, and then they're shouting or they're threatening or they're punishing really harsh because they've made mistakes in certain areas or they're not listening, that's very conflicting. Okay, so it's really important to think of the long game. That doesn't mean you're not perfect, right? Because none of us are. Like, if you saw in my house this morning what happened, I am by no means perfect. The important piece is you have to repair. Okay, so go back and own it and apologize. No matter how many times you shout or you lose it or you say something that you didn't mean, go back and repair with the child so that you're constantly keeping that connection, because then you're a safe place.
Is there anything that gives you hope, like in this digital age with children? Because there's obviously some great things that are coming out of it, aren't there? But I
think what's given me hope is that we're having more conversations. Excuse me. And I feel like parents are listening more. So I obviously do a lot of work around this, and I do a lot of free masterclasses. And I've had anywhere from 100 to 900 people recently sign up to these masterclasses. My last one last week had 1,500 people sign up. Like, that's significant, right? That's more parents are listening. More parents are engaging in the posts, in the stuff. That's how I'm seeing it. More people are talking about it in my consultations. So we're definitely taking it more seriously. The TV show Adolescence, that has made a massive difference. Parents are like, oh my God, all these things are helping, but we're so far behind where we need to be. There's so much we still need to do.
Yeah, and it's a shame almost that shows like that. And the documentary that Emma and Matt Willis did, that made us make a few changes, like the charging, of devices out of the bedroom. We've done that, which was I didn't really want to do that, but we were like, I was like, I'll do my phone as well. Like, it doesn't have to just be you. But yeah, they are great for making you think, oh my God, I didn't know that. I need to, that it can happen in the middle of the night. And are there any, tools or filters or anything that we can do to the apps that you trust? Or can we even, I'm even thinking like Google searches. Is there anything we can do to shut it down a bit? Or
There's lots of different things. Like, even Apple have come out with this new safety feature now, where if a child tries to send or receive a image of nudity, it gets blurred. So there are things happening, right? But what I'll say is, like, we've got Google Link, we've got all the Microsoft Google or the Microsoft parental controls, etc. There's different ones that we can trust. but don't rely on them. I don't want people going, okay, it's fine. I've got Google Link, Family Link on my devices. It's all good. Because what happens when your child isn't in your house?
Yeah.
Well, that's what sometimes I worry that, now especially our eldest is 14, he's going over to friends' houses more and more, but we don't necessarily know them that well. And we don't know what
Different rules.
they could be looking up or...
Yeah. Because you don't know who's going to come into that house.
Exactly.
No.
You don't know what older friends of siblings are going to be there, etc., etc. And that's why don't ever rely on them. Keep having the conversations. Think two things: conversations and open communication and connection.
But what was the biggest mistake that parents make when it does come to talking about porn? Because it is very uncomfortable, isn't it, to sort of sit down?
Yeah. It is. So firstly, I would be saying, give them a little bit of a warning that you're going to talk about it. So if we're launching straight into the pornography topic, give them a bit of a warning. Don't just jump in, right? Just say, I was thinking we'd have a little bit of a chat about something, and this is going to feel a little bit different to our usual chats. So give a little bit of a warning. And then depending on the child, it might be too close for if we've got like a highly sensitive child, or if there's a bit of a disconnect in the relationship, it might feel too much to talk about it. So go around. Like I always say, go around the back door. So what I mean by that is wait till something comes on the TV, or if you hear something on the news or the radio, and just explore like, oh, I wonder, have your friends ever come across something like that? Or if you guys as a friendship group have seen something, or so maybe not as direct. But if you've got that real solid connection and you're feeling comfortable and you think you can go direct, just start small, like clear language. Don't be afraid. Don't go off on like, don't use pet names, like use the correct names for your body, private parts and stuff. Don't make it all funny. Keep it clear, keep it short. Give them a little bit, then just brace yourself for some questions. And if there's ever a time where you can't answer, and I have a little cheat sheet that I give parents around the really awkward questions that they get to have an answer ready.
Yeah.
I'm going to need
because
that.
once you open up this, I'll send it to you, no problem. But once you open up this box, obviously there's a lot of stuff that can come. And I always say, don't rush through it, because very often when you say it, you will get a disclosure. And so brace yourself for the disclosure. So I've already prepped my mind psychologically, believe it or not, that I'm going to hear from my kids that something has happened. I read different books to them at nighttime around these topics. And at the end of one of the books, it says, have you ever seen something? It talks about like good pictures, bad pictures. It's Kirsten Jensen, I think is the name of it. She's fantastic about talking about pornography. And at the end, it says, have you ever seen anything like this? And every time I get to the end of that book, even though I'm guaranteed, I almost am sure they haven't, I brace myself. Because if you're ready for that disclosure, you're going to be able to keep yourself really grounded and you're not going to have a big reaction. Why do I not want you to have a big reaction? Because I want you thinking about when they're 12, 13, 14, you're constantly building trust every time you have a conversation with them now, and you're able to hold it, you're going to be more guaranteed that they're going to come to you when they're older.
And if there's like one message that you can give to parents about all of this, online world, or one message you just want parents to take away from this conversation, what would it be?
I would say your presence is way stronger than keeping your child safe, than any control, any parental control, any filter, anything. When I say presence, I mean your relationship. Your relationship is the number one thing. If you can get that piece right, if you can get that connection back, if you're feeling disconnected, that's what you need to do before you do anything else.
So, Aisling, where can people find out more about you and your courses, etc.? How can they get in touch? Just
on Instagram, Aisling_child psychologist. They can jump on there and send me a message or whatever. And I've actually, if it's okay to talk about it here, I've literally just opened up my brand new program called the Online Safety Academy, because I've had so many conversations over the last few years with parents around this topic in particular. I could see that they just don't have a clue. They don't have the depth of knowledge that they need to have, or don't understand what's going on, and they're feeling really unprepared and overwhelmed. So I just created something that's got very much parents in mind, because we're all so busy. And we're literally starting it tomorrow, the first round of it. So it's really exciting, and I've had a huge uptake already, which I'm really thrilled about. So if anybody's interested, they can jump in there as well, of course.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Love that. Okay, well, we end all of our conversations with asking, what's one thing you wish you'd known before becoming a parent?
I think I didn't know how hard it was going to be at times. So the big intense moments, which I had this morning, if you look on my Instagram today, you'll see I did a reel about it where there were tears. The intensity that it can feel in that minute, and it feels all like everything. It's just so hard, especially when they're very young. But that no matter what a parent does, no matter how often they lose it or how they react, that they don't need to get it perfect. They can always repair. And that it's going to be okay once they're repaired. They don't need to be perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect parent. So those ruptures, those shouting, those threats that happen sometimes, it's okay. It's not going to damage a child long term as long as you're repairing.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how hard it was at the start, and now I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
this is actually going to spark quite a few conversations in our house, isn't it?
Yeah, starting tonight.
Yeah, and I like what you say, like if something just pops up, maybe it's an opportunity to talk about it a bit more.
Yeah, rather than save it for later.
Or have this big sit down, we're going to talk about porn, don't do that. But yeah, thank you so much. We will put all of your links in the description of this video, and we would love for everyone to comment if they have any other questions, and of course follow you on Instagram as well for more information about your masterclasses, your online safety courses. There's so much great content that you put out, and yeah, thank you so much for everyone who watched and listened, and yeah, we will see you in our next episode. Bye.
See you guys.